Shalom Israel, Shalom. His brother Uriah want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Ba'ashem HaMashiach, Malak Yahushua. Another strong Shalom to all of the mighty brothers that go out there and labor on the highways and byways, making their body living sacrifice. In the rain, the tumults, the demons, the uprises, the uproars, they're standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. Another strong Shalom to all of the mighty brothers that are not out there as of yet, but they're building themselves up, reading, praying, fasting, right? Being diligent, taking notes, doing everything they could do to put themselves in a position to shake the hand and wake up the hopeful elect. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf in this thing, sincerely reverencing their husbands, being teachers of good things to the children at home, being quiet, shamefaced, submissive, loving, steadfast, cooking, sewing, cleaning, doing all of the righteous acts of our foremothers on fire for the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf that are not married as of yet, but they're building themselves up, being shamefaced, submissive, and loving, doing everything they could do to magnify the Most High in the ministry. Another strong shalom to all of the children in this thing, right? On fire for the Lord, zealous, right? Abstaining from all concupiscence and peer pressure, standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. And last but not least, another strong shalom to the 12 tribes, scattered abroad, reading, praying, fasting, making their body living sacrifice. Right, this is going to be an in-depth breakdown, right, on the Tower of Babel, man, right? And Sodom and Gomorrah. Right, and in-depth secrets and things as we dive into the scriptures that we have to uncover. Right, I'm gonna share my screen and give me a strong con, right, if you can see the screen. Right, give me a strong con, right, if you can see the screen. Right, we're gonna dive straight into it through the spirit. Right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 11, and I'm gonna start at verse number 1. And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. So the Lord said the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. That should already let you know confusion is bringing about if everybody's speaking the same thing and everybody's on one accord, and that one accord isn't of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. If the whole earth is of one language, then that means that everybody can understand one another. There's no division. Right? There's no separation, man. There's nothing that is going to divide any nation, right, from one another to be able to understand each other's speech. So they all had one language and they all had one speech, right? Now, when you dive into it, let me get this quick precept. The Lord from the very foundation of the earth never designed for man to be in one language and one speech, to love one another in unity, prosperity, and to get along, man, right? Under the heavens and then habitation thereof. Right, let me get this quick precept. It's the mighty book of Deuteronomy, right? Chapter 32 and verse number 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, each portion on this earth from Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they all have their inheritance. They all have their lands. They all have their languages. Everything's divided up perfectly. Right, even in the kingdom, we're going to have, each one of us is going to have a different gate. We're going to have portions. We're going to have lands. We're going to have thrones. We're going to have dominion. And even in the kingdom of heaven, these nations, right, they're going to be spread abroad to their respected cities and isles, and we're going to govern over them. The Lord from the very foundation did not want all men piled together, living next to one another, man. That's off. Right, the Lord said, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam from the very foundation, from the beginning, the Lord separated man. When man was formed, you had the serpent seed, you have the nations of men, right? And then you had the sons of God, right? You had the children of men, the seed of men, right? Which are not gods. You have the sons of gods, right? You had the son of the Most High, right? Which is us, from Adam all the way down to Seth, right? And then you would have the serpent seed. So from the very foundation, the Lord split up and divided the nations, right? Divided their inheritance and what they had and the places that they were. Now, if you had everything living next to one another, that would be confusion, right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book, right, of Isaiah. Chapter 5. Now, when you live one top of one another and you live in unity somewhat like this world, and you have apartment buildings, town centers, halls, right? All of these different townhomes and things like that, apartments. It's confusion. You hear dogs barking, yells, screams, unrighteous noises, music, right? Fights, right? You need your space. And we don't need to dwell next to Esau, man. We don't need to dwell next to Ishmael. We don't need to dwell next to Elam. Right? From the very foundation, the Lord didn't set it up for us to be right next to these heathens, man. Right? This is the book of Isaiah chapter 5 and verse number 8. Woe unto them that join house to house. The joining house to house is talking about this. Let me get this real fast. This is joining house to house. Apartment buildings, townhomes, centers, cities, where you can't righteously do the things that you would do if you had your own land, where you're governed over, where there's confusion, where you could be easily manipulated and overthrown. Why from the foundation, the nations gathered together, as we're going to go into, to live as one? That's confusion. And we're going to show you the parallel, how the ancient Tower of Babel, right, in the ancient Babylonian Empire, right, in the Mesopotamian time, is the same thing and the same spirit that's going on in America. The Lord said, woe to them that join house to house, that lay field to field, right? Meaning, right next door, you got somebody grilling, somebody doing God knows what in their backyard, right? And you have to endure those things till there be no place. Meaning right now, when you go outside, there's no place. There's no land. There's no security. There's no acres. There's no development. There's no peace, right? People in the country somewhat have a no trespassing sign. They have acres of land. They have cattle. They have their own cisterns and their own wells and things like that. We don't have that in the cities that we're living in now, because Esau and everything that he does and stand for goes against the Most High. It says that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth, right? So from the foundation, we're not supposed to be gathered together for everybody to have one language and one speech under the same mind of this world, because you have one thing. Let me get this real fast. You have the God of the Most High God, right, of the earth, right, of Israel. Then you have the God of this earth, which is the spiritual demon Satan. Let me get 2 Corinthians chapter 4. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse number 4. In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. So you have a God of this world. The God of this world is the spiritual demon Satan. So if you're under one mind and all language and one speech, that should tell you one thing, that you're being manipulated by the spiritual demon Satan, because you're not under the mind of Yahweh Shem Yahushua and the commandments thereof. Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ and the image of God should shine unto them. Right, let me get another one. Let's go to the book of John. Right, the mighty book of John, chapter 16 and verse 11. It says, of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. So the God of this world, right, to the nations is the so-called white man. Who stands at his right-hand side? The spiritual demon Satan, right, which manipulates the whole earth. The Lord said, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech, meaning they were of a one mind. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east. So the men were in the east and they journeyed toward the west. The west is the land of Shinar. The land of Shinar is modern day Iraq. In the ancient Mesopotamian Empire, that's on the west side if you look at geographically on the map. We traveled from the east, right? So all the people of the earth, like when you go to the east of Eden, when you go to the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter, Genesis, the 4th chapter, right? Even Genesis, the 8th chapter, right? When the ark came down on the mountain of Iraq, that was Eastern Turkey. So the people traveled from the east because Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Right? Let me get that real fast. So as you go inside of Genesis, right, the way these nations started to move, the land masses that they developed, and the languages over a matter of time that they started to speak We have to be able to read Genesis and not skim past the geography and or understanding thereof. Right, let me get this real fast. This is the book of Genesis, right? Chapter 8. And I'm going to start at verse number 4. It says, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Now, the mountains of Ararat are modern day Turkey. Right, let's go into it. Let's pull that up. Right, you have Mount Ararat, which is Turkey. Right. Now I want to touch on that real fast. Now it says Mountain of Ararat, east or west. The Mount Ararat is located eastern Anatolia, region of Turkey, between the provinces of Agirai and Giria, near the border with Iran. Right, so they travel from the east, right, from the time of the flood, right? Even from before the time of the flood, you had what? You had the Garden of Eden. Right, let me get this real fast. Let's go to the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse number 24. Get straight down to the point. Right? I'm going to start at 23. Therefore, the Lord God sent him from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Right, so men were predominantly in the east. From the time of the flood, they started to travel toward the west. Now the west is going into modern day Iran, like I said, in the Mesopotamian Empire in Shinar. Now this is Wikipedia, Shinar, right, from Hebrew Bible. Right, it says Hebrew Bible, which refers to Babylonian. The location of Shinar is evident from its description as encompassing both Babel and Babylon in northern Babylonia. So it says Babel or Babel and Babylonian, which really means a city of two rivers, or split between two rivers when you go into the etymology of the word Shinar, because it's split between those two provinces. In northern Babylonia and Ekrit and southern Babylonia in the book of Genesis 10 and 10. Right, so they're traveling from the east, and then they're going western, right, to the land of Shinar. Let me go back to the book of Genesis. It's the book of Genesis, right, chapter 11 and verse 2. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, right? It says, and they dwelt there. All right, let me touch on this real fast. Let's go to Genesis chapter 10. So the Lord already divided and gave man their portion from old. But what did man want to do? Man wanted to travel. Man wanted to be on one accord. Man wanted to defy the laws and everything that the Lord had set up. And man wanted to do his own thing. That's the same thing man is doing now, man. Man wants to do their own thing. When did the Lord say the so-called white man, right, the Ashikani should dwell in our land, man? And that should be their inheritance. They change lands, they change portions, they change nationalities, they change the night into day. They do all type of manipulation and witchcraft and change the ordinances around on the earth. This is Genesis chapter 10 and verse number 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided. Divided means separated. In their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So the Lord said, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided. The Lord is with division. If you don't have division, then you're going to have confusion. Confusion is going to breed to me understanding that, you know what, I can keep Christmas. I can keep Halloween, New Year's, Easter. I'm bowing down to Shiva, Brahma. I'm speaking a bastardized language. I'm teaching my children two different things, man. Like what was going on during the time, right, of Nehemiah. Why did half of the men speak in Hebrew, while the other half, right, had a bastard language. Let's go to the book of Nehemiah real fast. When you mix with these nations, it's no good, man. It's going to be confusion and destruction. It's the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13. And I'm going to start at verse, man, this whole thing is fire. I'm going to start at verse number 24. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So each people brought confusion. And when you mix around with these nations, they're going to teach you their religion, their gods, and their customs and things that the Most High is not with, that you're going to eventually bow down to if you're not strong in your God. So Nehemiah said, and I contended with them and cursed them and smoked certain of them. When it says he cursed them, it wasn't saying he was using the F word and the B word. Cursed them, meaning he's really getting on them to make them swear by God. He's cursing them out. Just like the angel cursed, right, in the book of, let me get that real fast. Judges, the 5th chapter. I don't necessarily have to get that. But he said, curse ye Mazrath. When you go to the book of Judges, the 5th chapter. So cursing isn't how we look at it today. He's getting on them, shaking the hand, making them swear by God. It says, and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons for yourselves. So this is a big deal mixing with these nations. Right now, you're in the classroom with them when you go to school, when you go to college, you work with them. We're so normalized to make it okay to dwell amongst these nations, to build house to house, land to land, and be under one language and one speech. We've been under it so long, we forget how wicked it is to all be the same. And it's so crazy and preposterous to be separate and be a separatist. That's why we're looked at as such racist people. But all we do is we want the best for our nation, our people, right, for our children. It says this, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, right, meaning a location and land, and they dwelt there. Now I'm going to go back to Genesis, right, chapter 10, and I'm going to read on down. And the sons of Ham, Cush, right, Cush are your Ethiopians. Ham is the progenitor, right, of the dark races, not the Negro. These are the Africans. Mizraim, right, you have the Egyptians. Put, you have your North Africans, and Canaan, which is your Southern Africans. And the sons of Cush, Sheba, Hilvala, and Sheba, right? These are your lands which compass where gold is in Ethiopia, right? Which is rich land, right? In a eastern Ethiopia and Eastern Africa, they have a lot of wild vegetation and wild beasts, right? It's a beautiful land, and it compasses with gold and natural resources. In Ramoth and Shephelah, and the sons of Ramoth, Sheba and Diane, right? When you go into it, right? It says, and Cush begot Nimrod, right? So Nimrod was an Ethiopian. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. A mighty one in the earth, meaning he obtained natural resources, land, dominion, power. He was like a king on the left-hand side. So as Nimrod stemmed into power and he gained, you understand, power and control, he began to be a mighty one in the earth. It wasn't talking about he was hunting zebras and lions and things like that. When he was a hunter, yeah, he can hunt on a physical level, but he hunted land, he hunted dominion, he hunted power, just like the so-called white man. They want power, they hunt it. They're a mighty hunter. They're likened it to a lion when you read the scriptures. The Lord said in the book, let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book, right, of Psalm chapter 91. It's the book of Psalm chapter 91. So these nations are hunters. It's not talking about like on a physical level, necessarily on a carnal level, right? This is the book of Psalm chapter 91 and verse 12. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against the stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, right? So a snake and a lion, the Lord said we should tread upon, meaning have dominion over these predators. You have eagles, which are high up, lions, and the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. And that's what these animals do. They're predators. They hunt. And it's same with their attributes on a physical level of dominion and power. So was Nimrod. Nimrod was a hunter. And anybody that obtains power, authority, and might, they want more. They have a God complex. A thousandaire wants to be a millionaire. A millionaire wants to be a billionaire. A brother that has lust, he has one wife, he wants 3 wives. Right? Somebody always that's wanting more is going to always be consumed in the power that they possess. Right? Let me go back to it. It's the book of Genesis, right? Chapter 10 and verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. It says, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Baal. That was the beginning of his kingdom. And Etri and Archak and Calneh in the land of Shinar, right on the western part of Iran and Mesopotamia. Now I'm going to dive on that. It says the beginning of his empire. Now let's go to the book of Genesis. Right? Let's go to Genesis chapter 10. And I'm going to dive all the way down to verse 31. Now these are the children of Shem from their generations, right? From 21 all the way down. And then you jump down to 31. These are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, and their lands after their names. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So before the flood, you understand the Lord divided the nations and divided the sons of Adam. It bred confusion when everybody was one. So from the time of old, you had nations walking around in the garden along with Adam. And Eve got seduced. And wickedness, witchcraft, sorcery, lies, evilness, and seduction, and all bred of things to rotten you from your wickedness and take you over to destroy you was bred in the earth. And the Lord said, you know what? This whole earth is wicked before my eyes. I have to utterly wipe it out with the flood. So from the foundation of the earth, men were going against the ordinances of the Lord to be separate. But they mingled amongst the heathen. That's one of our main downfalls, is we mingle amongst the heathen. This is the book of Genesis chapter 6. And I'm going to start at verse number 5. This is before the flood. It says, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Meaning what? Robbing, sorcery, dances, right? Homosexuality, sodomy, right? All manner of eating unclean foods, drinking blood, sacrifices, dances, all things in man's heart was murder, evilness continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth. That's not saying that the Lord repented, meaning he was upset that man had corrupted themselves. And it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I would destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth. Now, if we understand thousands and thousands of years ago that the flood happened, this is newly happening from the flood, the Tower of Babel. And this is very important when you go into the history and understand these men's minds and how wicked they are, why they built that tower in the first place, why they all came together. Why was their mind the same way it was from their ancestors and men that were before them? It says, and I will destroy man whom I've created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creepy thing and the fowl of the air, for it repents of me that I have made them. So the Lord said, look, I'm going to destroy everything. Man, beast, creepy thing. Jumping down to verse number 11. The earth was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh hath corrupted, right, his way upon earth. So it was no man that was really righteous in the eyes of the Most High, but Noah, right, and his family that the Lord had preserved to be able to repopulate the earth. Right, let me go back to the book, right, of Genesis, the 11th chapter. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 11. And I'm going to start at verse number 3. And they said one another, go to, let us make brick, right, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick and stone and slime, for they had mortar. That's not talking about a bunch of random men came together. They grabbed a bunch of random stones, a bunch of random slime, and then they start making, right, the Tower of Babel. Right? It was a very constructed matter how they came together with counsel. To have all of these nations under one mind to come together, this had to take time. It takes time, just like in the wilderness when they came up against Moses, right? All of those princes and nobles of the people. That didn't just happen overnight. It was a long conspiracy of time how to overthrow Moses and how to gain preeminence and power. The same way these nations, their mind was corrupt from the very beginning. And all that they thought was evil, more power, more authority. You understand, more rulership. These is the mind of the heathens. Heathens just want land. They want territory. They want might. They want strength. So it says, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, right? And slime. Slime is talking about sand, gravel, mortar, and it's going into I'm gonna touch on it in the etymology, right? That word slime. Now, the same way your modern day so-called white man, he makes streets, right? He'll burn it down and it's like a wax type, and he'll roll it real slow, and then it'll dry up and it becomes hard concrete, right? Or hard mortar, rather. That's the same way that they did. That's why it says burn. They took things and they burned it down to where it was classified as slime. But when you go into it, it's like the same strategizing the way that they make streets. With those bobcats and those machines that they roll, they will burn things down and they will make a road. So it wasn't talking about they hawk spit, right? And they went like this and they grab a bunch of carnal grass and, right? It wasn't just a bunch of monkeys building this, man. These men had understanding on the left-hand side. Anybody that has the knowledge to build the city, they have the knowledge of agricultural, so like your architectural work. And architectural work takes time. Leveling, strategizing, terrains, hills, right? What side is it going to be on, the east, the west? Entries, right? Bulwark, strategizing their city. This was the mind of the heathen. Just like you had Jeroboam, man. What was Jeroboam's mind? Right, let me get that real fast. He was a mighty one on the left-hand side. Right, let me pick that up. Let's go to the book of 1 Kings. So you had men that had understanding, and they built things, man. They built mighty things, right? So the heathen, they have knowledge, but it's not of the Most High. Right, let's go to the mighty book by the 1 Kings, chapter 11. Let me get straight down to the point. I'm going to go to 27. Right, and it reads. It says, and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. So Jeroboam, he lifted up his hand against the king. It says Solomon built Millo and repaired the breaches of the city of David, his father. Now Jeroboam had a working demon. Like all he wanted to do was build, right? He was very mighty and industrious, but he raised up his hand when he went against the king for how Solomon built Millo, right? And repaired the breaches. And he said, you know what? It could be repaired a different way. This is how you should do it. Let me rise in the power. He had that mentality of building to overthrow. And as he built and as you really go into it, and we're not going to get too deep in his building and structure, but he made high places for the heathens. He made high places in all of these type of idols and things and made his own high holy days. He was going off from the cities that he built. It says, and the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, and Solomon seeing the young man that he was industrious, meaning he knew how to build, and made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. Right, so he was over all of the charge. And as he builded, he corrupted the men in all of the cities that he built. That's why the Lord had to take him down in war, and men had to take the cities which he had built. Right, let's go back. I want to get this etymology in Genesis 11 for slime. Right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 11 and verse number 3, right? And then that word, like I said, slime, is going into how we make streets today. Now, today we have machines, Brutumian, right? But back then they didn't have machines. So they would have to take this and literally burn this until it became how we have it today.
By two men.
Right? Which is what? Which are streets. So these nations, they were advanced, man. You don't want to just think 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have anything, man. You had men that had sling stones, riding upon beasts. They had scopes, right? They built towers. I mean, these nations, they were advanced before they had, because they had the spiritual demon Satan. While we dwelt in tents and were simple people, they went and made their allegiance to the wicked. This is Bertumian. This is the slime that they used. They took the rocks and they melted them down, which is your modern day tar and or likened unto oil. They took, and this stuff is very sticky. So when you burn it down, you have that material that they made roads with. And they use that same tactic to this very day. And they also took sand and gravel. Sand and gravel is good as well. This also what they built up. How do we know this? Because the ancient mind of the Mesopotamian builder, when you go into history, and I'm going to touch on that, how did they build it, is listed already, man. You don't have to guess it. Just like somebody may say, well, how does the modern day, how does the ancient so-called black man overcome the heathen? The Most High. It's not a secret. So the same way they had their blueprints of their ancient buildings, how they built it, the structure and the way that they built it. Because you may say, well, how did the tower look? You may see a lot of pictures, which we're going to go into, most high willing, all of these different pictures of the Babylonian, right, Tower of Babel and Shinar. It's somewhat accurate, but it's a little off with the pictures. I'll get some pictures that are more accurate than others. But this is your stone and your gravel. So they had stone, gravel, and Brutumian, and they melted it down and beat it that it may all be one. And these were your bricks. So you can make bricks. They didn't just take random brick. It wasn't just bricks laying around. You can make brick. You could shape the brick the way you want the brick to be made. See, in the ancient world, men use their hands. You know, now men want to wear a tie. There's nothing wrong with wearing a tie. Right? If you got to go to work, you got to do what you got to do. You got to make money for your family. But at the end of the day, don't let that be you. Don't forget that we're a people to where we build things. We build tents, man. For the Feast of Tabernacle. We were a people that used our hands. You know your ancient uncle with that wrench you need all under the car. Right? Man painting the house, whatever the case may be. Right? We were physical in the ancient world. Right? So this was your slime that they used. Right? Let me go back to Genesis chapter 11 and 3 again. And they said one to another, go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, right? And slime they had for mortar. Right now, how is this constructed? Now you have something called the ziggurat. Now this is what your ancient Mesopotamian buildings often look like. Now you can go to the Roman Empire. Now your Roman Empire, they had all of those structures. But let me pull that up real fast. It's not a guess how your Roman Empire looked. They always had these pillars. The structure looked like Rome. So no matter if you go to Rome then and go to Rome now, the structure of how it built was a testament of those men. So the same way in the ancient Mesopotamian Empire, before Nebuchadnezzar II came in, Nebuchadnezzar II built his tower and reconstructed right? The Mesopotamian building off of the Mesopotamian builder from old. Right? That's history. So the same way he built up his empires and his structures was the same way that Mesopotamian map from old was built. Now look at Rome. Now a brother or sister may be like, well, I don't even know if this is Rome or not, but you see a picture. He said, well, that looks like Rome. The same way, let's go to it real fast. The ziggurat, this is how they used to build their empires and their buildings and their structures. And they built it off of a 3 to 7 column way where it was going upward. Right? It was kind of from a strong base into like a pyramid type of style. And we're seeing that the sand and the gravel was the makeup, and in between sticking it together, as that black you may see, is your slime. So as these nations build it, all the men were doing this, man. Think of how great of a building this was. You had Noah building on the right-hand side, doing the work of the Most High. That was strenuous. We built the temple. Zechariah, right, when you go into it, Ezra, right, Zerubbabel, Haggai, all of the prophets, they came together during the time of the rebuilding. When you rebuild something, it's like you're starting from the foundation and it's sweat and it's tears. You had to rebuild your whole life, man. You were a nigga, a fool, an idiot, a gangster, a hoodlum, somebody that lacked understanding, or you may have been one of those men that was in Islam, right? Whatever that was your stumbling block and or old wine, you had to kill that off and you had to build all over again, man. And we're still building. We are the temple. But every day we have to fast, we have to pray, we have to read. So reconstructing and building is a big deal, man. It's not a light matter. So these nations, when they came together, it was a big deal. And they all spoke the same language. And their all mind was of one accord. So this is that ancient, right, Mesopotamian structure. Now you also had, and Salaki for the pronunciation, the Etiminach-E, right, which is one and the same. The temple of the foundation of heaven and earth was the ziggurat, dedicated to the Mesopotamian god Marduk. So they had a temple. Every kingdom has a priest in a temple. The same way we have a priest in a temple. Don't just think we're the only one that have priests and we're the only ones that have temples. They go in their temples and they falsify to their false gods, their lies, and all of their witchcraft to the spiritual demon Satan. Right? This is the mighty book of 1 Samuel chapter 6. Right? And I'm going to start. I mean, this whole thing is fire. I'm going to start at, let me see what I want. I'm going to start at 5. Wherefore shall you make images of your emerods and images of your mice and mar the land? And ye shall give glory unto the God of Israel. Peradventure, he will lighten his hand from you, right, from off you, and from off your gods from your land. So all of these different nations, they had their own gods, man. They had gods of mice, you know, they had gods of rats and all of these different things, and they would worship them things, and they also had high priests. Every nation on the left-hand side has their high priest, right? I'm going to start at verse 2. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners. So Nebuchadnezzar had his priests, his diviners, his sorcerers. The Philistines, they had their diviners, their priests. And what do priests do sacrifices in? A Jethro was a priest in Midian, right? Moses' father-in-law. So these different nations, they do have a priesthood. It's on the left-hand side, though. And their sacrifices is on the left-hand side. So as they built themselves a temple, I don't got to get too deep in that, but as they built themselves a temple, they're doing it to their gods. And the ancient city of Babylon. So Babylon is built off of sorcery. It's built off of one language and one speech. It's built off of one mind, right? And now existed only ruins located 90 kilometers, 56 miles of Baghdad, Iraq. Many scholars have identified the Etumaranaki as likely inspiration for the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, man. Right? Now, I want to touch on this real fast. The brothers and sisters can see this. You have modern day Iraq and the Babylonian, and this is where Babel is located, modern day Iraq. On the western part, right? The eastern will be closer to Israel and or the Garden of Eden. And do you add on the west, right? Going into geography. Now, the Tower of Babel, I want to get a quick picture of it. Right now, some scholars would say it looks somewhat like this when you go into it. So, like, you bear with me. Some scholars would say it looks somewhat like this. Right, then that's not too far off of how the ancient Mesopotamian. This looks more similar of how they built it in their structure. From the ziggurat, how those men kind of got down. Right? Let's go back to the book of Genesis. It's Genesis, right? Chapter 11. And I'm going to start at verse number 4. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Now, a lot of people go into this as the Tower of Babel or Baal, that they built this to get to God. That wouldn't make any sense when you actually are in context and in the spirit of these nations. The last thing these nations want to do is get to the Most High. That makes no sense. When it's saying that they built whose top may reach unto heaven, you have to understand what was going on. What's the main reason and or multiple reasons of main reasons why these nations came together to build this tower? For power. And that it may be a sign of all the earth, right? If they were to get scattered, that they all could come back to this tower to be of one accord again. So they already knew that the Lord divided the nations, divided the tongues, and was with division from the very foundation of the earth from the time of Adam. They knew these things. You don't think Esau knows that I'm an Israelite? You don't think Esau knows my heritage and knows it better than you? A lot of Jakes now, man. You don't think he studies and has artifacts? You don't think he knows how to keep us in sin? These nations study our God. They study our downfall. That's tactics of war. And that's very wise and subtlety. On the left-hand side, as a snake does, he watches. As an eagle does, he watches. As an owl and an adder and a serpent, they watch. They creep. Right? And top apex predators, they wait till the right time and or season to pounce. That's the same way the spirit of these nations are, man. So they already knew that. So what they did was they built up a Tower of Babel, right? Not to reach into heaven to be with the Most High because they love the Most High so much. That's where you get all of that mixed wine of these other books. When you dive into the Tower of Babel, it's more copied and or issued out from India, right? From the Elkach of Gilgamesh. And all of these different books, they had their spin-off of what happened because after they got spread abroad, each one of those nations, they took a part of what actually happened and they put it into their religions. They put it into their cultures. They put it into their languages, and they all had their understanding of what happened. We have the true record because there's only one true living record. That's Yahushua that's left. He is from Genesis to Revelation. We have the true record. They have a quasi record and notes and chronicles of their kings and their nobles and their rulers and their scribes on the left-hand side. Every kingdom has records, right? You can read about that in Esther, the king's records, right? About Mordecai and the things that he did and or the city of rebuilding in First Esdras, the second chapter. So these nations, they have their own records, but don't let their records and or religion and these other books twist around the words of God to confuse you. Now it says, whose top may reach unto heaven. It was so high because they knew that if they were to get scattered, they would have to have some type of pinpoint where they could all get back to the same place where they were building at, because they knew that God would separate them. They had the understanding, and they knew that the Most High did not want this. And they also build it so high on another level that if the Most High were to have another flood and or destruction on the earth, that they could be able to escape his vengeance. Just like they have underground bunkers. Just like they have islands and plains and so-called indestructible places under the earth, under the White House, where you could be able to escape vengeance, man. There ain't no escaping vengeance. You can't build up a tall tower to escape. Now, seemingly, you may think it's a flood coming. You can get on top of a tree and or a building, and you'll be okay. So the mind of these heathens ain't right. Let me read it again. And they said, go to, let us build us a city. Who had the knowledge to build cities? I mean, whole cities. Let's go to the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter. All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 4, and I'm going to start at 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city. So a city was already built. The Lord already gave you portions and lands. From the time of Edom, everybody had their portion. When you get alienated and go find new land, as they travel west like they did, they build up a whole nother city in the land of Shinar. That's the same spirit of moving away as Cain did and built a city, right, on the left-hand side, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, right, Enoch. Check this out. And Enoch was born at Rak, and Rak begat Mahujalah, and Mahujalah begat Methuselah, and Methuselah begat Lamech, right? It says, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives, the name of the one Adah, and the name of the other Zillah, right? This is the point I wanted. And Adullah bare Jubal, and he was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name Jubal, he was the father of all such as handle harp and organ. So they're the father and the progenitor of these things, right? Reading on. And Zillah, she bare Tabukalan, and an instructor of every artificial in brass and iron. So the sons of Cain are builders. The Lord said, they shall build, but I will throw down. Now, the heathens, their mind is always to build. They're always building up a store. You may be driving to work, and you always see a building. You always see the construction workers on the side of the street, working on that same street for 14 years, man. Damn, 3 years working on that same street. They're building bridges, tunnels, right? They're building train tracks. They're always building because that's their spirit. The wicked spirit is to always build carnally, while the righteous spirit is always to build spiritually. We're building up households. We're building up families. We're building up and learning more about the house of God. We're building up our temples and our tabernacles, that we may be able to offer acceptable sacrifices before the Most High. We're always building what we're building on the right-hand side. They're building on the left-hand side. Now, what is an artificial? And they did iron, and they also did brass, right? Now, let me pull this up. Right? It's the definition.
Artificer.
It says a skilled craftsman or inventor. So they're skilled craftsmen. So as they build it in these nations, whether it be Cain coming back as Esau, whether it be Ham and Nimrod, him building up his kingdom, you understand the beginning of Babel, which is the city of confusion of tongues, right, in languages, till you get to the Tower of Babel and their confusion. They're building up, and they're strong in carnalism. They're strong in carnal things. Brass and iron is structure how you would build foundations of buildings, right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book, right, of Second Esdras. Right, I want to get this quick precept of Second Esdras. Second Esdras chapter 3, right? And I'm going to start at verse number 2. Right, it says, "For I saw the desolation of Sion and the wealth of them that dwelt at Babylon." So Ezra said, look, I saw the wealth of all of the men that dwelt at Babylon, all of the things that they stole, all of the things that they had, and all of the city how it was built up, and the things that those men had, and the things that they dwelt in, man. So when he came up out of the captivity, he understood those things. It's the book of Second Esdras 3 and 29, right? I'm gonna start at 28. "After their deeds then any better than inhabitants of Babylon, that they should therefore have dominion over Zion." Like, what's so better about Babylon that they have dominion over Zion? "For when I came thither, I had seen impieties without number." Impieties meaning evils. So when Ezra saw the Babylonian Empire, right, you would have the ancient Mesopotamian Empire, which is of Babylon, right? You would have Babylon, right, that you know of now by Nebuchadnezzar II, and then you have the daughter of Babylon, which we're living in now. He saw, right, in the Babylonian Empire, impieties without number. The spirit of Babylon is witchcraft. Let me pull this up, impieties. Ungodliness, sinfulness, sin, sacrilege, immortality, right? Wrong, misdeed, misdemeanors, bad deeds, transgressions, wrongdoings, profanity, and blasphemy. That's what he saw when he was in Babylon, without number, meaning he couldn't even number the things that he's seen. When all of these nations came together in Babylon, what do you think they were doing, man? Sacrifices, yells, screams, dances. They all were young, all were mixing their seeds. It says, "Then my soul saw many evildoers in the 13th year," so like in the 30th year, "so that my heart failed me." I mean, Ezra almost had a heart attack, man. He almost passed out. And we almost pass out when we see all of the wickedness of this land, man. Let me go back to Genesis, the 11th chapter. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 11, right? In verse number 4. It says, "And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower." Meaning they all wanted to be of one understanding. That sounds a lot like America, right? Let me get this real fast. It says, worldspopulationview.com. Most diversity cities in the world 2024. So what's the most diverse of cities around the world? The United States of America, with 58.3 diversity in it. Meaning it's not just all the white man. It's not just all the black man. There's more than 50% of the United States that is mixed with foreign-born residents throughout the whole earth. That's deep, man. I mean, if you want to really find a place on earth where you could go see every nation, there's not any nation that ain't in America, man. You got the Japhites in America. You're supposed to be somewhere swimming on an owl somewhere, man. Right? Picking out of somebody's damn hair and eating the tax. Right? And spearfishing, man. What are you doing in America? What is the Australian doing in America, man? What's the Ishmaelite doing in America? What are you nations? What is the Chinese man doing in America? And it says, how many people speak English in the world? 1.3 billion. Out of all the nations, the most widely spoken language is America. That's the same spirit of ancient Babylon, because they want the whole world to be of one language and of one speech. says out of the world's approximately 7.8 billion inhabitants. And I'm led to believe it's way more than 1.3 billion. Everybody knows how to speak English. The Chinese man, he's shaking the hand now. He stopped bowing. He took off his ancient garments. He put on a suit. Every nation, as they go up to these UN meetings, they're not speaking Arab. They're not speaking Chinese. They're not speaking Arcadian. They're not speaking these different languages as they go into the UN meetings. They're speaking English because the world is ran by the so-called white man and the wicked. It says 7.8 billion inhabitants, 1.3 billion speak English. The majority aren't native English speakers. And then they had to force themselves to find out how to even to speak English in the first half, man. They enrolled set of stone. Right, I gotta make it to English. I gotta make it to America. It says, however, about 360 million speak English as their first language. Most common first language is Chinese, followed by distantly by Spanish, and then the third comes English. So out of the whole earth, this is that one language and one speech. Now, America, what they do is they do mind control. Now, a lot of us, when we were children, and or if they're still doing this in school, I don't know, but they had you to pledge to the allegiance. Now, as you sit down and you take 7 steps back and you actually read what you're doing and what you're actually saying, you're actually making a covenant with the United States. You made a covenant with the beast. You made a covenant with the so-called white man unknowingly through being in sorcery and mind control. The easiest way to manipulate somebody is their mind. You know, because anybody can fight back physically. It's the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, they changed the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Under a president, when you go into it, this is the Pledge of Allegiance now reads, meaning they changed it, right? Under Section 7 of the Federal Flag Code. Right, let me get this. It says, I pledge allegiance. Allegiance, let me look up that word, man. Because this is what you're doing. Pledge meaning you making a vow. And this is what they do to you unknowingly. They make you of one language and one speech. They make you have that same spirit of Babylon. Obedience. Look at that. Loyalty. Allegiance. You should have your allegiance to the Most High. Why should you vow and make a covenant to always obey the beast? Well, let me go back to it. And not just children do this, grown men do this, man. I remember I had a job a long time ago, and I went into this base, this army base, because I had this load I had to drop off. And as I'm going through there, right, they said, they told me whenever it is where they put on the intercom that you have to pull over and put your hand right over your chest, man. Right, or you'll get a fine. Right, it says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Meaning my obedience and my loyalty is to the United States, to the beast, and to the republic for which it stands. Meaning for the people. The republic are the people. So you pledge allegiance, your mind, your soul, and your spirit into the beast for all nations. For which it stands, one nation under God. Well, where is that at in the Bible, man? What did the Lord say be of one nation? All the nations of the earth be my one nation. What scripture is that? Invincible with liberty and justice for all. I mean, in their mind is to make everybody one so that they may control all nations. That's what it's basically saying. It's not saying, why isn't it all under the Chinese or all under the Arabians? It's all under you, the United States of America. This is the beast. So if you think that carnally you just could get chipped and that's just going to be the end all be all, you're sadly mistaken. Because you can move out of the United States. Because it says in Revelation, the 13th chapter, he shall cause. Right, let me get that real fast. In the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. That he that is talking about in Revelation, the 13th chapter, is the beast. The beast is the United States of America. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast. The first beast is Rome. The second beast is America, coming out of the earth, meaning rising into power. And he had two horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon, right? Meaning he comes very sweet, docile, and very submissive and loving, like justice for all. But inwardly, he's a dragon, meaning to spit poison and venom into your veins. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and verse 16. And he cause of all. The he is the beast. The beast is the United States of America. If this is just physical, then you can move out of the beast somewhere else. That way he can't cause you to take it. You had different citizenships. You could go to Africa, or you can go to a different continent, a different country. The only way for this man to seduce you the way he can is by mass sorcery and manipulation, to get you unknowingly to pledge your mind, your body, and your soul unto this system. Whether you're in China, whether you're in Europe, right, whether you're in Africa, no matter where you are, this man can control you for you to have one mind and one language and one speech and one understanding. Right, let me go back to that. It says, which stands one nation under God, invincible, with liberty, right, and justice for all. Man, there ain't no justice for all. There ain't no inequality. There is no hope in America, just destruction. Right? This is the book of Genesis, chapter 11, and I'm gonna start at verse number 4 again. It says, and they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name. When it says let us make us a name, right, it's going into power and preeminence in this city, right, that they may be known from generations and generations that we set this up. We conquered the Most High. We made it to where the Lord divided it, but we turned the hand and became one. Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered. So they already knew that the Lord had the power to scatter them and change their languages. Lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city. The Lord came down via the hand of the angels. Let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse number 3. And the Lord's always watching. Matter of fact, before I get Proverbs 16 and 3, till I get 15 and 3, I want to get Sirach, chapter 16. It's Sirach, chapter 16, and I'm going to start at verse, let me see what I want. "17. Say not thou, I will hide myself from the Lord." So it's nothing that these nations were doing and or you where you could separate yourself from the Most High where he's not seeing you. The Lord sees everything, man. He even sees your mind and what you're thinking. "Shall any remember me from above? Shall not I be remembered among so many people? For what is my soul among such an infinite number of creatures? Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens, and the deep and the earth, and all that therein is, shall be moved when he shall visit them. The mountains also, the foundations, and the earth shall be shaken with trembling when the Lord looketh upon them." How is the Lord going to look upon you? By the hand of the angels, the holy angels. Let's go to Proverbs, right? The mighty book of Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse number 3. It says, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good." So the same way the Lord is going to have the angels write up a report. They're going to write up a report and they're going to bring it up before the Lord. How do we know that? Let's go to the book of Ezekiel. The Lord tells you what the angels are doing. They aren't just watching. This is the book of Ezekiel. So I can bear with me. It's the mighty book of Ezekiel, right? Chapter 9 and verse number 1. And it reads, He cried also in mine ears with a loud voice, saying, Cause them that hear charge over the city to draw near, and every man destroying a weapon in his hand. Right, so like, let me scroll down a little bit. This is the point. And the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub, right, whereupon he was, meaning the angel, and the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen. The man clothed with linen is the angel, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. So the same way men have a sword by their side, right? Your damn old uncle may have his damn Nextel or his Sprint phone, his old school Sprint phone by his hip. You know them old men, they used to have them clips by their side, right? Or a man may have a knife by his side or a weapon. An angel has an inkhorn by their side. That inkhorn means that's an ancient way how they used to write things with an inkhorn. Right? You may see a man with a feather and they'll dip it with ink and they'll write it down. This is an inkhorn. They'll take a feather and or another tool and they'll dip it in ink and they'll write those things out. Now, why does an angel have by his hip something to write? Because he's watching. He's writing down your sins. When your husband is just out of order, it's an angel with an inkhorn. When your wife just going off, it's an angel with an inkhorn. When your children are unruly, it's an angel with an inkhorn. When you can't forgive your neighbor, it's an angel with an inkhorn, man. When you're sitting up there and you're battling this demon that you continuously let rule over you because you have no sense of strength to fight and trust and faith in the Lord, there's an angel with an inkhorn. So when it says in Genesis, the Lord came down to see the city, the angels came down to bring the report up to the Most High of the children of men thoughts and their desires and what they were doing. And the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one. Check that out. The people is one. That's off. Let me get the book of Jeremiah. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, and verse number 37. Now, this is Babylonian Empire during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Let's see their mind state. A sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. So even in ancient Babylon, you had mixed nations that were in Babylon. So Babylonian Empire and their spirit is the same spirit from old, man. Now, the different nations that were lusting and in the Babylonian Empire were in Jeremiah, the 25th chapter, when the Lord had that cup of indignation to overthrow those men. But let's read it. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25, right? And verse number 20. All the mixed multitude, all the kings of the land of Uz, right? Check that out, man. All the kings of the land of the Philistines, namely Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and Ashdod, man. So all of these nations, they were mixing themselves together. They were amongst the Babylonian Empire. And the Lord don't like when nations mix and mingle. That's against the commandments. Let me get the book of Sirach. Right? Let me get this quick precept. It's the book of Sirach, chapter 17, and verse number 17. Right in the reads. For in the division of the nations, of the whole earth. He set a ruler over every people. And then every people had their ruler and their dictatorship, their prime minister, their president, and or king or prince. But Israel is the Lord's portion. So out of all of the kings of the earth, and to be under, the Lord said, look, I am your king. You have to be like these other nations. The Lord said, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they all, Salakia, have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, meaning they will be able to work together. Nothing can divide them at this point. Think if the Lord's design from old had been upon the earth. There will be no you and me's. There'll be no crafty counsel for the nations. They couldn't all consult together with one consent to destroy you, like it says in the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter. This is the spirit of Baal and Babel all over again. If the Lord's design he created would have worked, you understand that by corrupt themselves, but through spiritual demon Satan and the wickedness and the root that had to take spark for the time of threshings to come, it all had to be the Lord's design on a deeper level. But if everything was in order and it never got divided, then there would be no you and me's. There would be no nations and their confederacies and councils and different things in dark rooms and places of the earth. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 83 and verse, right, number 3. Let me start at 2. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult. A tumult is a loud noise, as if you just got out of a football game or basketball game, right? Your son just got out of football practice, and everybody's rushing to the locker room. That's a tumult. And they that hate thee have lifted up the head, right? They have lifted up the head, man, under one consent and one mind. They have taken craft counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. That's the same spirit of Babylon. So go through these accounts, beginning of his meaning Nimrod. And Nimrod was likened, when you go into the history, to be laying down and having relations with his mother, and brought forth his son Tammuz, right? The Israelites in the book of Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, were praising and weeping for. The women were. So the creation of idolatry, the ancient Babylonian Mesopotamian Empire, was all going into the Babylonian Empire all over again as they wept for their gods and their people, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. But they have consulted together with one consent. That one consent is that same spirit. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Eden, the so-called white man, the Ishmaelites, the Arabians, the Moab, right, the so-called Chinese, the Hagarenes, right, the so-called Africans, Gabal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistine, and the inhabitants of Tyre, your Africans, your Japanese, right, your so-called Jewish man, your Africans, mixed in, the Pentecost conquest, right, that you go into and they mix into that land, of Tyre, right, other Africans, Ashur, have joined themselves, right, with the children of Lot, paraphrasing. So when you go into that, man, the Assyrians, right, all of these different nations have joined together with one consent. Syria, to overthrow you and to take your throne from you, man. Right, let me get one more on that before I go back to it. Let's go to Psalms chapter 2. And 1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, the rulers take counsel. The kings of the earth, they're all going to come together. That's how you're going to have the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, the battle of Armageddon in the Middle East. And they're going to all fight against the Lord in the air, as you read about in Esdras, the 13th chapter. Being of one mind and one of one is more detrimental than men understand. And the foundation of its building, and that empire all started in Genesis. When you read the law, it's the foundation of it all. The book of Genesis, chapter 11, and verse 6 again from the top. And the Lord told people is one, they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, right? Meaning mix up their language and their speech. That can't be on one, that they may understand one another's speech, so that the Lord scattered them abroad from thence. The word scattered means divided. He gave them division. It's not saying they got beat up in a chariot and got taken to places all throughout the earth. Scattered just means divided and division. So we divided their languages so that it was no longer profitable for them to dwell amongst one another. Now, you can't do trade and have economics if you can't understand the city and or people that are in it to be able to trade with. Now, he's Arcadian, he's speaking English. He's speaking English and he's speaking Spanish. He's speaking Hebrew and he's speaking God knows. So they want to dwell, but with their own people, build their own cities the way that the Lord had designed it from old. And that they left all of the city. They leave the city because they couldn't find one another. That's the destruction of a city, not being on one accord. Now, if you and your wife aren't on one accord, or you and your children, it's like talking to a damn stranger. Left, right, up, down, black, white, right? You're not on one accord. I mean, the Lord even said you got an unruly wife, paraphrasing break, it's better for you to dwell on a rooftop. Meaning you got to separate. You got to get away. Something's not right. It's a spirit. How much more a physical language? They couldn't understand one. Off from building, right? And the Lord kept their language understanding, and he stopped their building, for they reached the point where they were going. The Lord said, they shall build, but I will throw down. Let me get that in Malachi. All right, going into East. Before Abraham and the father of many came in, nations that of Abraham, like the Chinese, right, the so-called Japanese, right, Elam, right, Israel, Arab, the Arabians, and all of the different language, right, Esau, right, and his progenitors, and all of his men that came out of him, the dukes of Edom. You had these nations, which were the sons of men. And it's the same spirit, because you have regeneration upon the earth. The same spirits upon the earth. This is the book of Malachi, chapter 1, and verse number 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yea, ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Wherein Edom saith, we are impoverished. Man, we don't have anything, man. But we will return and build the desolate places. Now, this is manyfold. I mean, this is really going into the Renaissance, right? How they were literally taken down, right? And we were in rulership and built it all kind of class, their image, store places, right? You had the Dark Ages, the Holy Roman Empire, and you go into those things. But on another level, I mean, this is manyfold. They're building right now. Everywhere you go, there's buildings being made and things being formed. The Lord said, but we will return and build the desolate places. The same way the Tower of Babel, man, that's a desolate place. Anything left off building and door they need to conquer, or that's that conquer, that's they want to put it up. They want to plant their flag there. They want to build up this earth because it's under the habitation of the wicked. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. And they call them the border of wickedness. Why the border of wickedness? Because the border is the beginning of anything. You have a border of a picture. It's the beginning before you get into the picture. Meaning wherever you have Esau, and he could just be at the border thereof, that's the beginning of the wickedness to that city. The beginning of the wickedness to that mind, that soul, that spirit, man. They're the border of it, the beginning. And the people against whom the Lord had indignation forever. Right? And they're your builders on the left-hand side, man. Right? No. Verse chapter like verse 9, right? Therefore, this is the name called Babel, way of confusion, because the Lord confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad, right, upon the face of the earth. Let me get a precept. Let's go to Psalm chapter 53. This is Psalm chapter 53 and verse, right, number 2. God looked down from heaven upon the children of men, the same way he did in the Tower of Babel, to see there were any that did understand and see God, written for our learning sake. Now we know that they can't seek God because they don't know God. The Lord hid his face from the wicked. He wanted to see, was there anyone that was really trying to keep the commandments, be on fire, be perfect, not defile the ordinances that he had laid down from old? Every one of them is gone back. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. There wasn't one man during his time that doeth good. Because they traveled, they left off, and they did their own thing as being under one accord. Right? Let me get one more precept through the Spirit. Right? Let me get the mighty book of Zechariah. So when the Lord is looking and watching, like I said again, he had a hand of those angels. They're going to bring up that report. This is Zechariah chapter 4, verse 10. Whom have despised the day of small things, for they shall rejoice and see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. With those 7, they are the eyes of the Lord. So the eyes of the Lord are the angels. They're going to be in every place of the earth, beholding the good and the bad, which run to and fro through the whole earth. So they're running to and fro to bring up the account and the matter of what was going on. So you have the building of the Tower of Babel, which most of our willing brothers understood and was broken down. But you also, I wanted to dive briefly, and maybe I could do an in-depth breakdown too on another day of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? In the 5 cities round about, they got burned with fire. Let's go to the mighty book of Genesis. This is Genesis chapter 19 and verse number 1. Because America is Sodom and Gomorrah all over again, right? Salaki, bear with me. It's Sodom and Gomorrah all over again, right? It's Tyre, Zidon all over again. It's Greeks all over again, right? It's Assyria all over again, right? It's Egypt all over again. It's the Babylonian Empire all over again. So it's regenerated into all of these nations and people, traditions and customs until you get to America, which is the most wickedest of all the kingdoms and the mother of all harlots, which have laid bed with all nations. And we in bed with somebody in their spirit, right, on a deeper level. So, I mean, you don't want to have a woman that just knows all these men, or on a physical level. She's defiled, right? And when you join, you become one. And your mind is supposed to be like that man that went into you. So if you dealing with all of these men and you dealing with all of these nations, your mind is going to be like all of those kingdoms that were before you. A lot of women, they can't shake certain habits. They wonder why they don't know who they are. Their bodies all different. They're jammed up. That's the spirit, right, of going off, and that spirit of being in this world. How much more these kingdoms? On all these different minds of these rulers, these nobles, and these, that's going to be instant to in your government, how you control the city, how you move, how you afflict the people. This is chapter 19, verse, I'm going to start at 1. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, right? And Lot sat in the gate. So these 2 angels that came to Sodom at even were sent on a mission. The mission was to come down, spy out the city, bring report to the Heavenly Father, that the Lord may know the wickedness and how great it is, because the cries have went up from heaven. The cries going up from heaven, the Heavenly Father heard via the hand of the angels. The angels, they brought up the cries. The Heavenly Father is beholding of all. The angels were sent down on a recon mission to find out deeper about the matter and the accounts that were presented before him. Let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 18. I mean, so the old world was wicked. You have the ancient world, right? You have many worlds from the beginning as you kind of dive into it. Right, let me get this quick precept. Second Ezra chapter 7. Right, going to it. The book of Second Ezra, right, chapter 7, and I'm gonna start at verse 7. The entrance thereof is narrow, set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left, right, a deep water. And only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go in at once. Talking about the kingdom and a way and a path to get to the Heavenly Father. If this city were now given unto man for an inheritance, if he shall never pass through the danger set before it, how shall he receive the inheritance? You have to go through temptation, adversity, and pain. And I said, it is so, Lord. Then said he, even so was poor. The world transgressed creed that how is done. That's the point. Then were the entrances of this world made narrow. So they were broad originally, but now through Adam's fall, the entrances of to the kingdom and immortality and being perfected through the law, statutes, and commandments, now they became narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils and very pain. The interest of the elder world in the time of Adam, during the time of Noah, right, during the time of Seth, right, and the men of God and Abel, right, you had that elder world. They had that ancient world during the time of King David, right, the men that wars, our kings, Joe, live out, which is the last days. It says, for the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, meaning as time goes on, there's more wickedness, more sodomy, more all manner of confusion, brought a more ancient world was more easy to get the kingdom than it is now. Newly created inventions. There are all these type of things that men are changing their kind, meaning their sex, and they're doing all these different things as they're moving toward the agenda of the beast, which are forming mind. The 12th chapter conform to this world, because the world is going to conform you to the image of the beast. But be ye therefore transformed by the renewing of your mind. Right, so you had that elder world. Now, let me go back to Genesis. I want to go to 18, and I want to start at 20. It says, and the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great. The cries were coming up from Sodom and Gomorrah. You had death, sodomy, pride. And when you go into Ezekiel, the 16th chapter, it's an in-depth breakdown of what was really going on, right, in Sodom and Gomorrah. And I want to touch on that. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry. Like I was going into earlier. The cry is talking about all of the wickedness. The angels brought it up before the Lord. The Lord beheld the matter, but yet sent other angels down to clarify and get another witness and or solidify it. That destroyed, because the Lord moves like, which is unto me, that I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom. Abraham stood before the Lord. So you had angels, and you had Genesis, the 18th chapter. Those two angels, they went out for the mission while Abraham stood before the Lord. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Nimrod, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. All right, let's go back to the book of Genesis 19, verse 1. And there came angels at Sodom even. When you paint the picture, you got to make this thing come alive, man. Right? So it's even time. It's getting nighttime outside. And Lot sat at the gate, right, of Sodom, in the entrance of the city. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. So it's the sun going down. It's at even. He's meeting these angels right at the beginning of the city. Now, when you go to Genesis, the 13th chapter, Lot shouldn't even be in the city. He should have never pitched his tent towards Sodom. And pitching your tent toward an idea and a place, traveling, what you want to do isn't always a wise idea. Everything isn't a sin, but do you have to do it? Is it wise? Wisdom is too high for a fool. So certain people may say, well, it's not a law. It's not a law. What commandment? What precept? What says this? Where's the statute? But you have to use wisdom at the end of the day with a lot of situations and things that you do. Or else you'll be overthrown in your simplicity and foolishness, man. By not taking heed to counsel or patience. Or just using common sense. This is the book of Romans, chapter 4. In verse, let's start at, this whole thing is fire. So like, you bear with me. It says, because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. So you will have people that will say, well, if there's no law, there's no transgression, which is correct. But just because there's no transgression doesn't mean that you're not going to fall. There's no law that say I can't, I don't know, do something else that may not be wise, but yet I do it and I'm jammed up. I didn't get counsel before I went to Alaska on a business trip with $28 in my back pocket, right? Banking on that my job is going to pay my plane ticket and or my stay. That's just not wise. Certain things ain't wise. Now, whether Lot really knew the in-depths of Satan, what was going on in there, there was a lack of understanding and or the confidence of the Lord that he felt going in there, right? A lot of these things ain't written, right? This is the book of Genesis chapter 13 and verse, right? I'm going to start at 9. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. And if thou art left hand, then I will go the right. So Abraham and Lot were both rich. They had many substances. And during that time, they had cattle. They had armed servants, right? They had men that were serving unto them and doing their things. They had their wife. They had all of the things in their substance. It's too great as they were striving together. It says, if thou wilt to the hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld the plain of Jordan, that was well watered everywhere, right, for his cattle. Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest into Zophar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves one from another. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. When it said the cities of the plain, right, you had those cities, right, that were in or around Sodom and Gomorrah. You had Gomorrah, right, Adama, Zimna, Salakia, Zimboa, and Zephor, and Bela. So these are cities around the planet that Lot set his tent. You understand where he was pitching toward to go to Sodom. Now, the next chapter, he kind of just ended up in there. It ain't really no breakdown how he get up there. He pitched his toward there. Pitch your tent toward things that are not of the Most High. You know, whether you're strong or not, you got to use wisdom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So the men of Sodom, they were doing all manner of wickedness and sodomy. Right now, I want to bring this up real fast. You know what? Pride, right? Now they're just all out in the public way. There used to be a thing where they used to call it trapped in the closet or coming in the closet. Let me see if they got it. See, coming out the closet all shortened to coming out is a metaphor used to describe that people self-disclose of their sexual orientations and romantics. Check that out, man. It used to be a creepy thing. We used to do it at night. It was something that you were want your parents, something that say out loud, man. Now you got people that's sitting up just coming out, man. Like just being themselves in wickedness, not caring, laughing, joking, parading, going to bars, clubs, venues, parades, revelings, weddings, drunk, thugs, all in. So America is Sodom all over again. America war all over. America is Baal all over again. Babel all over again. Babylon all over again. Look at this, man. Two men, grown men. And this place make me sick, man. They do it in front of children. They push the narrative in TV, on the Disney Channel, on cartoons. And Jake is getting into this thing heavy. He changed on who he was, man. Let me get this quick precept. Let me go to the mighty book of Wisdom of Solomon. Right, this is the mighty book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14. And I'm going to start, this whole thing is fire. But I'm at verse, let me see what I'm at. 23. It says, for which they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange riots. What is a strange riot? What is that talking about, man? You had clubs where they get those glow sticks and they'll revel and rage in the dark in sodomy, man. You also have blood sacrifices. Those are strange revelings. Let me see. Don't get caught up in this, man. A strange riot and revelings of sodomy. This is sick. And people look at this as fun. If this is your idea of fun, man, blending in America, you got to really question if you're in this truth or not. You don't want to be mixed into the strange revelings and rights of this world, right? It says they kept neither lives nor marriages any longer. The undefiled, but either slew, right, another treacherously or grieved him by adultery, so that there reigned in all men without exception blood, manslaughter, theft, dismutilation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, and perjury. That's the spirit that's in this world. That's the spirit in any evil city. Theft, unfaithfulness, corruption, blood, slaughter, strange revelings, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good turns, defiling of souls, changing of kind. The changing of kind is talking about the sex. That's the changing of kind. They came up with these doctors, these inventions, Dr. Miami, a BBL. They go through all of these things, these women, but they also have transitional things that these doctors move in to corrupt and overthrow a man from being a man. And even in the law, the Lord said, let me get the book of Deuteronomy. Right, chapter 23. It says, he is wounded in the stones, or have his privately member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. So that was even the mind of the Lord in the ancient time, huh? Now the Lord has granted mercy, right, for those men and those eunuchs to be able to come in and enter. For Isaiah the 56. But in the ancient world, this is a serious matter. Yet the changing of kind, disorder in marriages, adultery, and shameful uncleanness. Meaning you don't even give a damn if you unclean for a night. Get up, don't even wipe yourself off, dive into the next wicked sin. Get up, sleep, wake up, wash, eat clean food. And these nations are nasty and wicked. Let me go to the mighty book of Ezekiel and show you the spirit that was in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's the same spirit that's in America. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 16. And I'm going to start at verse number 48. Right, and it reads, as I live, saith the Lord God, Sodom thy sister have not done, she nor her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. What is likened unto Sodom to be like our sister? We're so close. And then you have Sodom, nor she her daughter. You have people that come out of different nations, right? Like we're the daughter of Babylon being subject in the city. You know, we're the daughter, right, of Zion, right? Because we come out of Zion. But yet this is the daughter of Babylon, right? It's the spirit because these nations, they come out of America, right? They come from beneath, right? And Babylon has born America, right? Sodom has daughters. These nations, the spirit that they're in and the kingdoms that come after is what the Lord is talking about. Behold, this was the inquired of thy sister, Sodom. So the Lord is about to tell you Sodom's spirit, or this was the inquisition of thy sister Sodom, pride. So it wasn't just nasty, lewd, right? Sodomy and Sodom and Gomorrah. It was also pride. Pride, right, in idolatry is the beginning of sin, man. When you start to depart from your maker through pride, arrogancy, nobody can tell you nothing. You can't be able to repent or come back to the Lord if you're dealing with pride. Nobody can rebuke you if you're dealing with pride. You can't listen and be the one that's wrong sometimes, right? Or just listen any type of level, you get pride. Who's more prideful than these nations? You try to rebuke somebody that's living that lifestyle, they're just dripping with pride. You can't tell me nothing. Who do you think you are? Don't judge me. Right? So Sodom had pride in it. Fullness of bread. What's another thing that Sodom was dealing with when you dive into Sodom and its witchcraft and wickedness? Fullness of bread, meaning what? They wasn't suffering a famine. They didn't want for anything. When you have a city that's filled with money, filled with clubs and revelings, but also filled with banquetings. Banquetings is going out to eat. You know, you may have a so-called house and or apartment that's close to a metro station, close to a bunch of bars, close to a bunch of clubs, close to a bunch of restaurants. That'll make it skyrocket all the way up because people love dining. People love eating. People love feasting. People travel from afar to go to certain restaurants, man, to eat. So they had fullness of bread. You know, it wasn't lacking anything in Sodom. That was the place to be. It says, and abundance of idleness. And that's scary, man. Because an idle soul is for hunger. When you don't know which direction in or spirit to be, you're going to every food activity, man. Whether it's a strange hobby, whether it be binge watching TV, right? Whether it be walking and you have nowhere to go. When you're idle, you're just bound to fall in a pit. The Lord said in Sodom, abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. So there were no arms in Sodom. Sodom is your modern day Las Vegas, your modern day New York City, your modern day Washington, D.C., your modern day capital of wickedness where there's nothing but strange lewdness and fun on the left-hand side. That's not fun. When the poor and needy is out there, they said they neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor. I'm led to believe there were dead bodies of the poor out there, stinking and rotten, and wild beasts, right, traveling to and fro, right, and all type of thefts and robbery through all of the poor and the needy that were out there. And they were haughty and committed abominations before me, meaning they were proud, before I took them away as I saw good. And the Lord has to take a lot of people away by fire. Fire is a cleansing agent, which is going to do away with all of the wicked, just like the Lord did from before through the hand of the flood, right? Let's go back to the mighty book of Genesis, the 19th chapter. So it was a lot of spirits in Sodom. And those spirits that we just read from are the same spirits that are in America. It's the mighty book of Genesis chapter 19, right? And I'm going to start at verse number 2. It says, and he said, behold, now my Lord, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house and tarry all night. So Lot was like a good host. He wanted to bring these men in that they weren't outside tarrying all night. But Lot didn't know that they were on a recon mission set from the Lord. These men don't sleep. They don't need to eat. They don't need to relax. These are angels. Angels they don't get tired and sleepy and hungry and thirsty and don't have to use the bathroom and get weary. So their job was to sit down there all night. So as it was even, the sun was going down and it began to be night where all of this strange activity and wickedness was going on. And those angels were out there because that was their job. But Lot was like, you know what? It's about to get turned up out here. I don't want you tarrying all night. And you need to come into the house and wash your feet. And ye shall rise up early and go on your way. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the streets all night. Right? They wanted to see all of the abominations thereof. And he pressed them greatly. And they turned in unto him. Meaning Lot was like, I'm led to believe Lot knew the cries, the moan, strangeness, and how it could be with Sodom and evil, that he greatly pressed those men to come into this house and entered his house and made them right good hospitality and love from you. And did bake bread and they did eat. But before they down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter. So it was like a stampede of grown men, grown, sweaty, hairy, abominable, evil, lustful men beating on the door, man. It says both old and young. You had 80-year-old men out there, man, with gray hair and hair ears, man. Women out there, no, you children out there, man, just entering into puberty. They was beating on the door, 13, 14, 15. I'm like, it was a great big deal. Because they seen the angels, you know, and they said how strong they were and the glory of them. And they said, you know what, who are those men? Right? They got aroused. Right? Now, I'm going to dive into this real fast. Check this out. This is the question. Why do male dogs lick other male dogs' private parts? Because that's the thing that dogs do. Dogs are beasts, and beasts have instincts, and their instincts are going to lead to move without will and discernment. This is they get to one another. So they're moving like beasts. It says it's actually a good sign that they're getting along. So when you start to, I'm not going to repeat it, do these abominable things, that's how the animals get along. That's how animals sniffing. They want to dominate and hump. They move like they have no type of discretion, right? They can't restrain themselves. That's how those men were moving, like beasts. Only do dogs smell things out of curiosity. They taste the paw at things out of curiosity. Dogs learn a lot about each other by sniffing and licking the genitals of other dogs. That's all. Just curious. What is this? Right? And these nations, they're curious. Things. The beast. Our beast. So when it says the people from every quarter, meaning every direction you could look, these men were coming and beating on the door, man. Now, the same way you have parades and things like that, you have the same in Sodom and Gomorrah. Imagine 82 of them right there coming to your house, beating on your door. Now, your door hinges is kind of squeaking, man. You kind of getting scared. Right? The screw kind of slowly unraveling off, man. You start to question, is you going to make it right? They ain't letting up. Right? Let me go back to it. It says, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in unto thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them. Right? Meaning lay down with them and commit abominable acts with the holy angels. And Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after them and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Now I have 2 daughters, but not no man. Let me, I pray you, bring them to you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto the men do, for therefore came they under shadow of oath. So, I mean, I'm not going to read this whole account, but you see the mind state and the mind of Sodom, that it doesn't care about the ordinances of the Lord. It doesn't care about woman and a man coming together in unity and having marriage. They move solely off of instincts. They move solely as beasts. But they try to defile not only man, but they try to defile the angels of the Most High. Yeah, I'm led to believe if these angels didn't blind these men, it would have went down. If the Lord don't destroy this place, ain't no telling where it's going to be the next 200 years, the next 300 years. Wickedness is going to wax older and more wickedness is going to bring forth. Now, let me get that in 2nd Esdras, the 14th chapter. This world is waxing older and older, but as its age is waxing more wicked and wicked. This is the book of Salakia, 2nd Esdras. I'm going to start at verse number 10. Right? And it reads, "For the world has lost its youth, and the times begin to wax old." So this place is waxing old, and more corruption and evil is taking place. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, is to flee from the times. For yet great evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done after. More robbery, more murder, more evilness, more seduction, more spirits are going to enter in. For look how much the world shall be weaker through age, so much more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. What happens when you're in your 20s, in your 30s, and somewhat your early 40s? You have somewhat more energy. But as you enter into your late 40s and or 50s and enter into your 60s, go on a slow down. You start hurting you. Your hips start feeling a certain way. You can't stretch the same way. Can't move your neck the way you used to. You can't jump as high as you used to. Hey, but when you enter into your 80s, they live to your 80s, barely even move. You may slide the bathroom. That's how this world is. The younger it was, the less wicked it was. And the Lord had to destroy the earth thousands and thousands of years ago by their wickedness. In the time of Noah. In the time of Gomorrah, of fire and or the age, as the Lord said, man. It says, and increased upon them that dwell therein. For the truth is fled far away. You don't have as many prophets as it was. Now it's the great awakening, and brothers are waking up to this truth, coming into the knowledge of the Most High. But it wasn't like that. You understand? You had men that were evil, that all he wanted to do was corruption. The truth is fled far away, and leasing is hard at hand. For now hasteth the vision to come, which thou hast seen. And through the Spirit, the hastening of the vision is all the prophets that have spoken before of all of the evil of this place which shall be taking place. But let me get this closing. All right, that's mighty book of Revelation. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 3 and verse number 2. But be watchful. Watch out for what's going on. Right? If you got a end time headlines, a BBC News, right? All of these different whistleblowers and these men, dive in. Missile Defense Agency Alliance. Go into these things, these websites and or articles, right? And dive into them so that you may be aware of what's going on in the earth. Bombs are being relocated and transferred, right, by these different nations. Men are reveling up for war. Things are going on while you're falling asleep. Be watchful and stay awake. It says, and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. Whatever's dying off, be watchful and understand that at any given second, the Lord can take it from you. For I have not found thy works perfect before Yahweh. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So continue to watch that the Lord may not catch you as a thief in the night. Our Most High willingness was edifying. I'm going to give all glory to the Most High God.